God sent his son. They called him Jesus. He came to heal, love and forgive. He lived and died to buy my pardon. An empty grave is there to prove my Savior lives, because he lives tomorrow. Because he lives, all fear is gone. Because I know he holds the future, and life is worth the living just because he lives. How sweet to hold a newborn baby and feel the pride and joy he gives. But greater still, the calm assurance this child can face uncertain days, because he lives. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all fear is gone. Because I know he holds the future, and life is worth the living just because he lives. I always liked that song. When I was growing up in the church, we would sometimes play that. Actually, I wouldn't play it. We would sing it, but we had this gal that played the piano very faithfully for years and years and years, and her name was Judy. She actually just died this last year. She was a wonderful woman. I remember once when I was much younger and broke, I was pretty good at house painting, and she knew that I needed some work, and she said, well, I think, we really were thinking about getting around to painting this one room in our house, and we didn't do it, and we'll hire you to do it. And so she hired me to paint this room, and then she found some other work for me to do. It was just what I needed at that time. But I remember her playing that song among many other ones. She could, you would. The way our church worked is that anybody could say, could we sing this song? And then the piano player would try to play it. And most of the time, she could just pick it up and play it because she sight read very well. But sometimes she'd be like, give me a minute, and run it through, and then okay, let's do it. And then we would sing the song. It's kind of, it was like play Stump the Band, Can you play this one? But anyhow, I always love that song. It reminds me of being a kid in church. And it's a very good thing to remember. We can face uncertain days because he lives. There is hope beyond this life. So, I was thinking, I have not done enough of these Goodstreams lately, and many of you very kindly remind me of that. Why didn't we do that streaming thing? Remember the thing that you used to do regularly that was really great, where we would all get together and we would do gardening stuff, and you would make up songs off the top of your head, and occasionally you forced us to sit through a hymn. Why don't we do that thing anymore? So we're doing that thing. But today I was working on my New Year's post, my New Year's resolutions / goals post over at thesurvivalgardener.com, which I do regularly, like every year on my site. I will do how did I do with the previous year's goals, and what do I plan to do in this new year? And I'm lucky if I ever get 50% of my goals done. But even then, it's it's somewhat satisfying to have this stuff written down, and then you get to the end of the year and you go, check, I got that one. Or you have to make an excuse for why you almost got that one, but you didn't quite. I would have made that one goal of getting washboard abs. It's just that ice cream. If the devil hadn't invented ice cream, I would have made it, but I was really close. Like, that was the only thing that came in between me and, there you go. So, let's say hi to everybody here. It's nice to see you all again. So, hey, Mio is going to get milk and say hi to the cows for us. Hey, Anon H. Yeah, Anon H says, Bermuda grass should never have been planted in lawns. I agree. It's incredibly bad. And hey, Jonathan says that he is abandoning Florida for Alabama. I jinxed you. Well, it's not bad. Alabama's nice. Hey, Daniel, nice to see you. Yes, we definitely need to learn to garden more than ever before, and I'm not really interested in getting in the insane back and forth fighting that's going on, and it's I feel like my job is to hopefully encourage people and to get people gardening and growing food, and I'm sure that will be a political thing at some point. If this channel ever disappears for some crazy reason because we offended somebody, misgendered a turnip or something, I don't know. Well, I don't know how you. There's many ways to offend people. But if that ever happens, obviously look up my website, and hopefully that's still there, thesurvivalgardener.com, because I love writing. Writing is my primary medium. I just ended up on YouTube later and have greatly enjoyed it. But let's grow food, and I think everybody can agree it's a really good idea to grow your own food, especially as things go up and down. And on the downside of it, you say, I would feel more secure if I had more potatoes. Yes, that's how I feel. This last year, I planted an absolutely epic garden, and then ended up fleeing the country that I was in and moving to Alabama, and then planting another epic garden. I did not expect to have 2 epic gardens in 1 year. I am actually very thankful that we were able to do 2 big gardens in 1 year in 2 very different climates. That was really kind of cool. And, hopefully you guys here, if you follow the whole fourth turning concept and the course of empire and all that, things get bad on a schedule. We've had a great time for a good bit, and things can go crazy, and we don't expect it, and black swan events occur. So it's a good idea to know how to take care of yourself and learn these things in the fat times and save up for the lean times, and be ready to put your gardens in place. Know what already grows well, know what you can do, and then work really. Work at it harder when you really have to. So, I'll continue saying hi to people. So, hey, BCM Falls. I have planted in 5-gallon buckets before. I didn't have as much luck as I did in the ground. Got to make sure you get the drainage right, though. And thank you very much. Hobby sends a $5 super chat and says, "Hey, David, thank you for your books. What would be your top book recommendation for market gardening? God be with you and your family." My top recommendation was Jean Martin Fortier's market gardening book. Let me see. It is for a northern climate, but I greatly enjoyed it. It's very well organized. And it's an intelligent approach to working on a small acreage. The Market Gardener. I will put a link here. Let me see if I can do this. I will drop a link in the text for you. And this is actually my Amazon Associates link. So Jeff Bezos gives me a little bit of money if anybody buys it. But I highly recommend that book. I enjoyed it. All right, let's so hi Hashim, hi Ben, hi Chip, and Marcus Aurelius, nice to see you again. And Ron Benson, Arizona. Hey, Bad Drivers of Columbus, Georgia. Hey, Carolyn, nice to see you. Shay, Hugh, Betty, Brian. Little Slice of Paradise Homestead. That's nice. I like that name, Little Slice of Paradise Homestead. The LSOPH. Little Slice of Paradise Homestead. Hey, Paulini. Derek, Jason. Karen is only listening tonight, so everybody be nice. Hey, Ira. Liberty Not Licensed. And let's see. Okay, I'm going to stop saying hi to people. But hi, everybody else that I missed. Chip also recommends a successful grower's handbook for small-scale organic farming. We have some very smart people here, so if anybody makes a recommendation here, any good gardener makes a recommendation, especially somebody that's actually a member of this channel. That's the folks that are in green are the members. They are actually crazy enough to be members of this channel. Those are authorized good gardeners. I have learned so much from this group. Okay, so I'm going to try something that's a little different. I want to talk about my crazy garden plan for spring. And I don't know if I can make this thing work, but we are going to try. I am going to try and draw it live. So you could kind of see what I'm talking about here. So let me see. What I will do is switch this view over to Photoshop. I have Photoshop. I like Photoshop. Photoshop is cool. So now in Photoshop, let's make some garden beds. Let's make some, should we make them green or should we make them brown? Let's start them out brown. Why not? Let's make some nice brown. Let's make them the color of our dirt. Ew, 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 ew. There we go. Okay. There's the, you know what? Let's just paint this whole thing. There we go. Oh, that's a little dark. Let's go like that. And I will take this here and we will put some beds on it. All right. So here's a bed. And okay. Okay, let's see how this goes here. I don't even know how I did that, folks. So let's say right here, you guys getting this? Does this make sense to you? Can you see beds? See if I can see the chat here. Yes, they'll be green. Pastor John says, Photoshop, thumbs down, little gimp. You know, I have tried to use alternatives to a lot of things. Like I'm stuck with Pro Tools and with Photoshop. Okay, so anyhow. All right, let's invent. These are our beds right here. Okay. Now I want you to pretend. Let's pretend. Let's make it more like we've got 3-foot pads in between these things. Okay. Let's see if we can. We'll make it a little more like that. So let's imagine these are 4-foot wide beds with 3-foot wide pads. And now I know the spacing is not exactly right. We'll have to go like that. Is that right? That's about it? Skinny them up a little. All right, okay. You know, if I could just switch to Linux with OpenOffice, that would be awesome. And if there was an alternative to every single piece of tech, that would be great. But there's a reason a lot of the smaller programs are not as popular. They're often just not particularly great. All right, so I think I will freehand draw. Let's see. We need something green here. Now, we need to merge our visible layers. There we go. Now, back on the island, I was experimenting with the Syntropic Agriculture System of Ernst Gotsch. Now, I didn't even experiment with it properly because I can't stand to follow anybody's complicated system. Exactly right. Now, I read all of what I could find on it and watched a bunch of videos, and I had help. One of you guys sent me a bunch of good information and went through a whole bunch of videos and stuff and read it up, and I realized, okay, what this guy is doing is all this succession planting. And so you're starting with something that's going to be harvested in 90 days, and then the next thing is harvested in 120, but you have to immediately cut and do something that's going to be in another certain amount of days and whatever else. And so it's like the system is very tropics oriented. This comes out of Brazil, and it is very succession oriented, meaning that you're planting this one thing and pulling this one thing and harvesting this one thing and planting. And it's very specific. There's a lot of very specific information on how this sort of thing is supposed to work. But my takeaway from it was that it worked really well with some of the edible hedge type system ideas that I was working with. So let's say, okay, here we go. This is a banana tree, right? So we've got a banana, and right, so you might have your bananas. Hey, that's not bad. There we go. Look at those bananas. That's very banana-y, banana-esque. So you might have this banana right here in the middle, right? And then this, that this thing is like a 1-year cycle, and then you chop this sucker down, and then you throw it on the ground and you feed it to the stuff around it, which is cool. It's great. It's awesome. So you've got this chop and drop thing going, but you're also harvesting here. And then around this, right, you've got your cassavas. There's your cassavas with their little palmate leaves. Look at those little palmate leaves. Oh, that's so cool. There's some cassavas. So your cassava is coming in like 6 months to a year, but your bananas might be actually producing for much longer than that, So you would be working with these different things at different times to make sure that you're always pulling in some specific yield, So yeah, there we go. Let's just say that's a cassava. That's good enough. There's our little cassava. All of those years of art school, and this is what we get. Drawing with a mouse. Live on YouTube. No New York galleries for me. All right. So you get your cassavas and you got your bananas. Those are your long terms. Those tend to run towards the middle of the beds. But around these things, you've got little guys like, here's your ginger. Right? The ginger is doing its little gingery thing. And the gingers are going to come in like a 2-year cycle or a 1-year cycle, depending on when you harvest it. But then there's a shorter cycle of all of your sweet potatoes. And you got all these crazy sweet potatoes crawling all over the place here. Oh, look at those sweet potatoes. Man. Look at those little sweet potatoes. Those are leaves. Right. So the sweet potatoes are coming in as a ground cover. Now these guys are only like 90 days. And then you might have some stuff in here like, oh, we've got a cabbage. Oh, look at that cabbage. That is a gorgeous cabbage, folks. Look at that cabbage. Man alive. That is a gorgeous cabbage. Unbelievable. This guy went to art school. Look at that line art. Line art cabbages. Okay, so there's a cabbage. These guys are much faster. They might be 90 days. But there's a lot of system creation to this thing that is very time oriented. And so I'm looking at it and going, I don't know that I have any interest in trying to figure out exactly when to plant stuff. And also, this tropical system is not going to carry over to Alabama. But there are a lot of really smart permaculture people, playing around with different stacked layers. We've got guilds, right, where you have like one fruit plant. Let's say you've got a citrus and maybe there's a few guavas around it, and then around that you might have lemongrass. That was a guild that I had because I figured that the lemongrass and the guava would help repel some of the pests that might spread disease to my citrus, and it seemed to work very well on my North Florida food forest system. And I also had cassias around there for chop and drop. So we've got a guild with a citrus, cassia, lemongrass, and Cattleya guavas all together in a system. But then there's the edible hedge systems, that I was really into a couple of years ago, and I planted this edible hedge down on the island, which I'm sure is doing great feeding some of these goats right now. But the food forest people always tell you, the edge of the food forest, right? The edge of a system. This is the really productive area. This edge. The edge of the shore. The edge of the forest. This is where you get the largest diversity of species and interactions. You go deeper into the woods, and the sunlight is low. Oh, yes, but you get lots of sun out here. So right here at the edge, you have plants living that are half sun, half shade. You get full sun plants that live there, and you get full shade plants that live there right along that edge. In here, you're only getting the shade plants. Out here, you're only getting the sun-loving plants. So the problem with a system like this is that you only really have so much edge. Once you build a food forest and it gets really big, you don't have much edge. And people will tell you, you've got to have that edge. You need lots of edge. So if you build a food forest where everything gets really dark and you get this huge canopy, when everything is dark in here, that is absolutely no good. Yes, your top canopy is doing fine, but you have to maintain, you have to have a way to get rid of some of the, wow, I'm gonna make this thing really big. Let's erase that edge with a giant eraser. Whoa. You didn't think you'd see this live tonight, a giant eraser doing that, but there it is. There it absolutely is, just like that. Boom, giant eraser. So the edge is a problem in a lot of the food forests because you end up with this big canopy, and then I tell you, you got to go in and cut sections of it out and always kind of open up little meadows, open up little clearings in the woods so stuff grows. But then there's this, there's this guy named Stefan Subkowiak, probably totally pronounced that wrong, Subkowiak, up in Quebec, and the Permaculture Orchard, Paul Wheaton filmed this really cool video called The Permaculture Orchard, and I watched it, and it's fantastic. And what he's doing is he's doing these row systems where he's got, there's a tree, there's a tree, there's a tree, this is also a tree, and there are these beautiful tree systems. And then you can walk down the middle here. Let's make a nice lady here walking down the middle, and she's going shopping here for stuff. She could just walk down this middle row here and get herself some apples, maybe some berries over here, Maybe she's got a shopping cart. Shopping cart. Oh, and she's got a baby in the shopping cart. The baby's like, hey, give me some berries. And she's got a hat on because it's sunny out. And the baby's got a hat on. and they've got an animal. Maybe it's a really long-legged dog, and the dog is also like, man, I'm gonna eat one of those apples. So he's eating an apple. There's his ears. He's eating the apple, or maybe he's just bringing him apples. Maybe they got a ton of apples already. So there's this walkway system here that makes it really easy, really nice and clear, and you have edge all over the place. There's edges, which means there's lots of sunlight coming into the system all over the place. And so what you get is this is like a cool bit of forest with all kinds of little plants growing in here. But then you've got an edge. So for the sort of person that loves row gardening, and a food forest seems a little chaotic. I mean, when I built the food forest for my parents, my dad's like, I don't know what anything in this is, except for that tree over there and that tree over there. What is all this stuff? And it's spaced all over, and I don't know how to find the things. I mean, you tell me there's this there and this there and this there, but where do I find it? So this gives you a little more of an organization. So you might have a pear, peach. This is awkward. You get the idea. It's peach, pear, apple, app. You have to go to the app store and get one of those. So, and then around them you get your berries, you get your gooseberries, and then if you really wanted to, you could put in some ground cover, you could put in some vegetables or whatever else. But this area in between stays clear. It's easy to manage. And you could prune these trees so they don't turn into a big, deep, dark canopy. So you're combining, hey, this could be, in a normal garden here, this whole section, if you were just going to do the regular old boring garden sort of a thing, let's see if I'm going to make a new layer here. You're going to do the regular old boring garden thing, you might just say, okay, I'm going to put in some cabbages. Cabbages, and that's your whole system. Right? So this is your typical annual garden with a monoculture of one thing that you plant at the same time, and you harvest it over the course of a month or two, maybe. And maybe in the next row, you have some other thing. Maybe it's beans, maybe it's tomatoes, maybe it's whatever. But here's all your cabbages, and that's the whole system. But what happens if, you get a gigantic, massive, cabbage worm? You get this cabbage worm, and he's like, man, I am going to eat all those things. I'm going to eat every single one of those cabbages. See, that's not good, because it'll definitely get through there and eat it, because once that worm gets to one end, it will just tear the whole thing up. It'll spread from thing to thing to thing. So if you have a monoculture, you're already putting some susceptibilities in there. You're also getting a single harvesting season, which is not good. And you're basically just setting yourself up for a regular gardening situation where you're going to have to bust out the 7 dust, where you're doing extractive farming. You are having to dump in the fertilizers to feed them. You're not getting the benefits of a food forest. We've talked about the benefits of food forest many times. The chop and drop, the building the soil, the long-term root relationships, the fungi, the confusion of pests, the beauty of it, the ability for having larger long-term species in there which shelter new additions to it. Like my food forest in North Florida, over time I was able to put in more and more tropical species because the overnight frosts were not as damaging, because I had canopy and I had a lot of buffer zones with a bunch of different plants in there, so I could tuck in a little more tender plant and it would just go ahead and grow and it would do fine. Whereas if I had just planted that out in the middle of the grass at the beginning, an overnight low would have just completely destroyed it. It would have been all alone and freezing. But tucking it into a semi-shaded canopy with all that buffer in there, it kept everything from getting as cold and nasty overnight. There was a little bit of protection for it. So there's a lot of benefits to having the food forest system, but the organization of a garden is a really nice thing to have. So, all that to say, I would like to do this new gardening system come spring, where, here we go, let's put in a tree here, and let's put in a tree here, and let's put in a tree here. And now remember that these beds are just simply 4-foot wide beds with 3-foot wide spacing. So let me mark that for you so you can see it. So I'm gonna go a little bigger. So we've got 3 foot, and that is so slow. That is so weird. And 4 foot, right? So this gives us a little more space. Now, the system that I built early in 2020, which was more, was totally tropical, I only had 2-foot wide paths. And what happened was over time is that they really got filled in, and it was getting really hard to pass through the system without, you had to basically carry a machete with you all the time because the stuff just grew out into the paths like crazy. So I think starting out with a little more space in the paths is a good idea, particularly if I'm going to do long-term trees. So let's say here, oh, we've got impact font, so it's like meme worthy already. Come on, that's good. We'll make that a little smaller. So let's say we've got, for this climate, persimmon. That's persimmon. I think it's actually just easier to write it. To mess around with all these text layers, it's ridiculous. Just get a giant paintbrush. So we might have a little pear. Oh, and look at my handwriting is nicer than the impact anyways. Pear, apple, and peach. What we're going to do is actually create strip food forests. So these trees are going to be small when they first go in. So around them, this is my canopy. Around these suckers, I'm going to put in the smaller plants like cassavas, amaranth, gingers, things like that. Put in all this stuff in between. And keep the taller, more vertical stuff to the centers. So if I have, let's say this is a blackberry, so that's a BB. And this is a blueberry, which is also BB. Oh dear, that's confusing. Blueberry, blackberry, and then maybe over here I got a raspberry, an RB. And then this is the tall stuff. Now around these things, here we put in our vegetables and flowers, and you just fill this whole thing up. But not only that, another thing I've got to make sure that we mix in here is we need some like crazy scrappy nitrogen fixers. So I'm gonna mark those with some stars. So we've got some nitrogen fixers that are in clusters or mixed in between that are deliberately there just to chop and drop and feed to the system. Right? So this stuff gets repeatedly cut. So we're talking like licanas, locust trees, that kind of thing. Maybe even interlobiums. If I can get some interlobium seeds again, that would be awesome. Cassias. So these guys get mixed around in here just deliberately to chop and drop. Mexican sunflowers, maybe. Maybe we do an entire bed like Ernst Gotch does of, this, like, say this whole bed here is just nothing but Mexican sunflowers. And then you're getting tons of biomass cut repeatedly. and you're throwing it from here onto one of the other beds. So this bed is just for creating biomass, you know, throwing it all through there, right? But if we did this row thing, we could actually like use the benefits of improving a vegetable garden bed over time. Like, you know, Charles Dowding, he's got all of his mulch and all that kind of thing. You could be building that inside of the rows with all the prunings that come out every time you get spent vegetables. Maybe your beans or whatever are tapped out. You just chop them and drop them right back in. And everything that falls out into the pads, you keep these pads weeded. Whatever you get out of here, you can always just rake stuff back up and dump it into here from the pads. Keep those pads open with a wheel hoe, and then build those beds in between. But not only that, you could build these beds really long term by dumping in all kinds of biochar. Like, hey, let's make it black. That would be cool. Kind of make it like charcoal black, right? So you're throwing in all this biochar, right? The biochar gets thrown in these beds. And maybe you're throwing in all kinds of, let's find a weird color for minerals. You know, you've got all these cool minerals that you're throwing in here. So you've got the Steve's mix. And you're throwing in a bunch of organic material. Perhaps you've got, we go and we rake up leaves and we throw them in between. And so these areas are getting better and better and better and better over time. And they're long term. And along with all of the pretty, nice trees and everything that we've got, we're also like, hey, let's make sure that we get lots and lots of butterflies. Let's take the benefits of getting those pollinators in, and we will plant in flowers. We've got some zinnias in here. I love the zinnias. I love seeing all the insect activity going on around them. Can I eat them? No. Do I care? No. It's beautiful. It really only takes you a very short period of time to grow a big flat of zinnias and transplant them everywhere. And you're like, hey, let's throw in some marigolds. So we got marigolds. And this is getting really cool. These beds are getting richer and richer. The biodiversity is getting richer and richer. You're not necessarily getting the production that you would get out of just running cabbages or running green beans. But we could do single row gardens for that somewhere else. What this becomes is a walkable, shoppable set of food forest hedges that have long-term perennials in them. And if you ever decide, hey, you know what? I'm just going to abandon this whole system. I don't want to, I don't want to deal with trying to pop vegetables in between. And I'm telling you, you could really pop some vegetables in between. But say you just were tired of doing all of that. You're tired of weeding the rows. You don't want to do that anymore. Well, then you just let it all turn into orchard. Because you've got these long-term trees, and you plant these long-term pinnacle trees and prune them appropriately in the first couple of years so they become an orchard. You've planted an orchard, but especially in the early years of this orchard system, you could put in, hot peppers and cabbages and all kinds of cool stuff around the base of the trees. Remember, the trees are not going to shade hardly anything to begin with. And not only that, when the trees get bigger, you have good edges that you could pop things in at. You're going to have sunlight coming in from the sides, which means you're always going to be able to grow gingers. You're always going to be able to grow some greens. You'll probably be able to grow a decent amount of green beans. It's not going to be exactly the same as if the green beans were in full sun, but you're going to be harvesting peaches and apples and pears and persimmons and pawpaws and raspberries and blackberries and blueberries, all that cool stuff. So you're getting this really wide balance of foods, and you're getting a long season of foods. Plus, in the years where things are worse for particular things, like, let's say the cabbage worm comes in and eats half the cabbages, well, there's going to be something else that's doing fine. Maybe you get a bunch of elderberries that year. Cabbage worms aren't going to eat the elderberries. Maybe you get a really good year for one type of apple, not a really good year for another type of apple. getting away from the whole monoculture thing is great. You know, it's this sort of a system. I think is kind of a synthesis between the edible hedge system and the tropical syntropic agriculture idea, and you know, it's very similar to what Steven Sapkowski is doing, except that I don't like the putting plastic underneath, and we're able to grow really year round because our climate here is zone 8. So you know, you could always be getting when these top trees, these guys are not looking so happy because it's fall and they drop all their leaves. Well, when they're dropping all their leaves in the beds, feed the beds, and you plant in your kale and turnips and daikons. Maybe you throw down rye for cover, put down some you know, winter peas and that kind of thing. You change over what's kind of growing in between, and then you got a lot of perennial stuff that's just gone to sleep. The gingers will go to sleep and yams will go to sleep. So I'm seeing this system as really synthesizing a lot of really good ideas, maintaining the edges, getting away from the monoculture, being a system with chop and drop, so it's feeding itself. You don't have to constantly dump in a lot of mulch. Oh, you just gotta mulch everything. Like, yeah, but where do you get the mulch from? Sometimes you just can't get mulch. Sometimes when you're way out in the middle of the country, you can't. And the mulch has to be renewed. You're still relying on outside sources. If you grow your own mulch in the system and chop it and drop it and chop it and drop it and chop it and drop it all the time, you can build the soil up with what you're actually growing on top of it. So you're using the food forest concept right from the beginning, but you're able to grow a combination of annuals and perennials into the system. You could even chop logs and stuff up. All your prunings could be chopped into bits and thrown down on the ground. You just grow your vegetables from transplants and pop those transplants. See a gap. You don't have to even worry about having perfect lines or anything. You just have hedge forests with lots of breathing space in between them and lots of sunshine coming around them, with these walkways that you maintain and long-term soil fertility. So it's not getting tilled, it's not getting burned out all the time. If you really want to do market gardening and production crops and that kind of thing, you do that in another system. But this is the system that I'm going to be experimenting with right now. I think that this is probably the most exciting system that I'm looking at, you know, that I've looked at in a while, and it's just a kind of a synthesis of a lot of things that I've seen. And the experimenting that I did at the beginning of this last year was quite enlightening as to how well that it worked. So, boom, put those rows in there. I'm going to mark the beds off, and then I'm going to improve the living daylights out of that soil on it just to get the stuff started. Because as you saw from the 12 bed experiment, the areas like, even where I threw 10-10-10 down and tilled it in, as bad as the soil is and as bad as 10-10-10 is, the 10-10-10 area actually has some weeds in it. Whereas the control area doesn't even have like anything but a couple of little itty bitty green weeds in it. It's unbelievable. Even the weeds don't want to grow. And when even the weeds don't want to grow, you have a problem. So, now, what we need to do is name this system. We have to name it. I need a really cool name for Orchard Food Forest Row Garden. The Good Orchard Forest Edible Hedge Thing. There we go. Does it have a good acronym? So it's not necessarily the most productive system in the world. But it would be an interesting adaptation of some of the tropical stuff that I did. And there are, I mean, we are far enough north that I should be able to grow hazelnuts. I can grow persimmons. I can grow pears and peaches and plums. I can grow raspberries. I could probably get away with gooseberries. I could probably grow some sour cherries. There are a few varieties of low chill cherries I could probably put in. The D to the G food forest system's not bad. The good grocery shop's not bad. Edible orchard lanes. Ooh, that's nice. Yes, I could get moringa to grow here. We are the D to the G sand to humus system's not bad. Row forest. Row forestry. It's not a completely original idea, but there's no such thing as a completely original idea. But hey, you know, we can name it, right? I'm just looking. I cannot pull in, like, bananas are just not happy. They're not happy here. I would love to grow lots of bananas. Man, you get down to like Orlando. Bananas can be a serious staple. Down in the tropics, I was told, a friend of mine said, "Man, the banana trees that you planted at the beginning of the year, you're making bananas now." I'm like, that's kind of, but here I am. What else can I do? You know, I could definitely try peanuts. Peanuts will grow well here. Blockchain in the name. That's good. So I can't grow papaya, but I could grow pawpaw. Asamina triloba. I actually have a bunch of seeds right now that are in the fridge stratifying. So that'll be good. Good wood gardens. Good woods. Might have to replant moringa, or it may grow back. This has been a little bit harsher, they tell me, than the winter normally is here. We had a night down to low 20s, which is, it's pretty rough. But moringa often comes back from beneath the ground, and you can grow sugarcane here, so there's some tropical stuff. But the problem with the bananas is that the tops of them freeze off so badly, it takes them it takes them the next year to grow back. And by about the time they're ready to start fruiting, it gets cold again and they freeze. So it just knocks them out. It's like North Florida, where it's a problem. Cannot grow soursop here. I can grow figs. Figs are a great one. I actually have a fig right here. My friend Maggie brought me this fig. It's actually Maggie's portrait that I painted on the wall behind me here. This fig came from Croatia originally, and she brought me 3, one of which I gave away to my dear friend Karen. And then I have 2 more, but they came over from Croatia with an immigrant to Texas, and then from Texas she brought a couple over to me, so we'll see how it goes. Gypsy says, I'm in Northeast Alabama, 7A to 7B. So 7A to 7B, you're actually getting more chill hours. That's going to allow you to grow some very good temperate species. The D to the G perma blockchain regen agroforestry vegan system. That is really good. Irish Cropper says, this soil is horrid, so what choice do I have, food forest? That's good. So, yeah, I'm excited. I'm just gotta wait for it to warm up. I was trying to buy, one of you guys recommended Simmons, I think it was Daniel, recommended Simmons Plant Farm, but I've had the hardest time. I cannot check out on their website because they've got a problem with their PayPal checkout system, and it will not allow me to buy. I had like a $300 order. I'm like, I am buying enough for 2 big giant beds of all kinds of cool stuff, and then I'll propagate from there. And I was just gonna do it, pull the trigger, and it won't let me. So I actually have to call them and try to make the order. You know. Boyd says, I'm trying pigeon peas. That's another good one. Pigeon peas are a great addition to a system like this. Even if they don't get to the point where they produce pigeon peas, they do produce nitrogen, and they produce chop and drop. So, very good. Bad Driver to Columbus, Georgia says, I'm rooting some kumquat and fig cuttings for my sister as she works on the rooftop gardens. Okay, that's cool. At UGA, and wanted something to replace a fig tree that died up there due to the pot not draining. Trudy says, are you starting seeds? Not many. I have some pomegranate seeds that I've started. It's so cold, and I don't have a spot that has really good light to start seeds in, and I do not have a greenhouse to start seeds in. It's just really been, hitting the 20s regularly, and it's just not great for starting seeds. I would have to have, I have to get this. I've got a big light that my friend Mark brought over and dropped off an LED extra that he had, and I could set that up, but I've got to figure out how to hang it. And then I was sick through most of December, but I'm figuring I'll probably start seeds pretty soon. I may just pull the trigger and buy a greenhouse, buy a small one. There's just a lot of things to get organized. My old homestead, I had organized things over a period of time. And, bit by bit, you add things. You're like, okay, next year I'm going to do this. Like, I just got a shed here so I could store some of my tools. And so I have a place to build things in, because there's really no extra space. The house is full of children, and there was one little porch on the back, and the porch was completely full of tools and pots and fertilizer bags and stuff like that. So I just didn't have space to do any work. So I got a shed, one of those portable buildings, which kind of set me back. So I had to choose, okay, I'm going to get a shed so I actually have space to store stuff, or I'm going to put in a greenhouse. Shed was a higher priority. So it's a shed, and then, I'm renting. So if we move, I can take the shed with me. But it's a matter of, I really should work on that shed and get the power put into it, and put in a workbench in there, so I've got a space to work on things. But then, I really got to get some garden stuff done, and what's priorities. Which thing do I want to do? If I start too many things and I don't finish them, that's not good either. Maybe in another month I'll start some seeds. I'll probably start seeds on the back porch, maybe when things get a little warmer, and then, or put them out in the yard and then have to carry them in. I still don't have irrigation that's decent. I need to be able to carry irrigation with me. And, as it is, I've got 3 hoses tied together with a, going way out. That's not great. But bit by bit. Have a good night, Jeff. So does anybody have any questions? This is just a, brainstorming, I guess. Here's my crazy ideas. I have managed to root pomegranate cuttings. They're difficult, kind of, because they will rot if they're too wet, but if they're not wet enough, they don't root. They don't root and they die. Kind of find a balance. 70 degrees now in Southwest Florida. Yeah, I was down in Fort Lauderdale last week. It was beautiful. Beautiful. Lovecats, I saw YouTube where he made cold frames out of straw bales with clear plastic draped over. It's not a bad idea. It's easy. There are ways to do it. Gypsy says, have you tried making a hot compost pile, put a lean-to over it, tried steach? No, I haven't done anything like that. That's for people that like to make systems. I don't really like to. I don't know. Like, when it gets to making mechanical things, let's build this thing. Like, let's build a water heater that runs on a rocket stove or something. I just don't really enjoy that very much. I kind of just like to throw seeds around and see what happens. Maybe a little more of an anarchist. Steve says, you don't, man, not right now. Yeah, Scott says, watching Danny and Wanda in their high tunnels and dry peas in January. Oh, yeah. Liberty Not Licensed says, any guitars laying around there? Yes, there are. I can answer questions with a guitar. Joe Serrano says, are your turnips still growing, or have you harvested them all? No, I haven't harvested them all. They're still growing, but they're not growing fast. Gotta get through the winter, and once that lasts, then I think they'll grow a little faster in the spring. Mel Wade says, can you put up a hoop house greenhouse? I'm sure I could do that, but it'd take a little engineering. Did I ever grow Eugenia neonatida star cherry pitana? No, I haven't tried that one, but I would because I'm a fan of the genus. Josh says, this is my first stream with you. LOL, give me a couple of months and I'll have plenty of questions. Like, why is he singing on the guitar? His way through the comments. Now, let's go down and read more comments here. I can keep singing them. I mean, there's nothing that says, there's no rule yet. It says I can't sing the comments. Jeremy says, can you think of a way to keep compost hot during freezing temperatures? Oh yeah. I used to have it in a great big fridge. I actually had an old fridge. Took the guts out of the middle. Just used the outside as a shell. Filled it full of compost, covered it over with a piece of ply. Never cold. But the problem is you gotta start it hot at the beginning of the season and let it keep rolling through the winter, because once it freezes, it's really hard to get them warm again. It's like it's over. Carolyn says, I'm getting ready to take my dining room table out of the house. Put up raised grow boxes and grow lights. Grow vegetables in the dining room. That's not a bad idea. Simmons Buddy says, could you tweak the system to work with livestock, or even want to? Pigs, goats, chickens, etc. Probably if you wanted to, but I'm not really a livestock sort of guy. I don't even have any pets. Liberty Not Licensed says, tipping is still legal. $5 super chat. Thank you very much. And God loves you. Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. Bernadette Rollins says, have you found a piano yet? Yes, indeed. An absolutely wonderful woman gave me her husband's old digital piano. It doesn't have the best speakers on it, but I found that by plugging it through. It's got weighted keys and everything. It's from the 90s. It's got a pretty decent piano sound to it. Took a little getting used to, but I'm used to it. I plug it through my bass amp, and it sounds pretty good. I've got a couple of hymn books, and I've been practicing my sight reading and playing the hymns through it. At some point, you can actually see me playing it in the last video that I did. At the very end, there's the little, Greenhouse Megastore joke song that I did. It's in there. So yes, I do have a piano. It's good enough. I'm very happy for it. I don't necessarily deserve a big grand piano or something. This is perfect, and it was a very unexpected gift. So it's pretty cool. And Karen sends a $9.99 super chat with a bowing pair. You're very welcome. I got to meet Karen along with a few other folks, and see some people that I hadn't seen for a while, like Lauren. When I was down in South Florida, I did an impromptu get together in a local park, and 50 minutes into my talk, a park ranger comes over and gives us a hard time and tells us we were supposed to have a permit, and it was an illegal gathering. Oh my goodness. So it would have been really awesome for my brand if I got arrested, but I was nice, and she let me finish talking, so. But I mean, if I had gotten arrested, like girls love to write guys in prison. I would have probably got more letters. All those good gardening gals would have been like, you were so amazing, you got arrested. When you get out, are you going to get a motorcycle? I don't know. Thank you very much for the tip, Joe. MX50. I appreciate it. The great thing about this piano is that it is easy to move. It is the easiest one I have ever had to move. Jason says, Stefan uses a chicken tractor in the alleys between rows of trees. That's a great idea. And actually, this system would work very well for that. You just make a 3 foot wide. Or even, let you could grow grass in between and let them graze the grass in between. That would be awesome. Thank you for the super chat, Jeremy. Much appreciated. It is not a Yamaha. It is a Technics. I think it's a Technics. Yes, that's right. Lauren says, David the Good, are we okay? And the ranger's like, no. Crazy, man. If I got arrested, I would have 5 more children. That's funny. Yeah, I know, exactly. Illegal gathering. Welcome back to America. I deliberately just picked a little local park, and I even asked a guy on the parks board if it was okay if I just met with some people down there, and he said, oh, yeah, it's no problem. And then this ranger came and, like, first got on a guy because one of the guys that was there, one of the good gardeners, had his dog with him, and it got on him for having a dog, and then came back and got on my case. I have no idea. Free country. But, yeah, I'm going to be, when it gets a little warmer, I can't stand it. It's too cold. He'd bail me out. That'd be awesome. Put me in a bail. He's the most dangerous man. Hey, Dan. How are you? I would like to get this system started as soon as it warms up enough that I actually want to go outside, because it's been 30s and 40s during the day. It's too cold for me. I'm gonna start marking these beds off, and because 2021 looks like it's going to be a very exciting year, I figure I should get the kids together and we'll do another great big garden. I gotta find something to show you guys here. You'll appreciate this. This is my favorite meme right now. Oh boy. So, I am going to, when it warms up a little bit, I'm going to go mark it all off, and the kids and I are going to turn some of that ground up, pick the spots where we start, and I am going to start rapidly accumulating a bunch of smaller trees. I'm not going to do anything like stick in giant chestnuts or pecans. I'm going to do trees that I can keep small. And of course, you know, I covered Ann Ralph's book, Grow a Little Fruit Tree, extensively recently. And, last year, maybe it was even more than last year. Holy moly, time flies. But covering how you can really keep trees small, 6 foot, 8 foot, that's the way you do it. You know, we put in a whole bunch of varieties, so we've got a really long season with a whole bunch of little trees, and then around those little trees we could grow all the time. I've done this before. I had a perennial bed just like this that I did in North Florida, gosh, 7-8 years ago, probably, and it went great. You know? Where do I get the trees from? I like Burnt Ridge Nursery. If you are in North Florida, I recommend Scrubland Farms. And Farms is F-A-R-M-Z. See if you can find Sam at Scrubland Farms. He does a couple of the outdoor markets. What do they call them? Farmers markets. He does a couple of the farmers markets, and he can get you just about anything. That's really good. He's a really good source. But I like Burnt Ridge Nursery for mail order, and I also really like groworganic.com. Peaceful Valley, they have some of the highest quality bare root trees that I have ever bought. And I thought about seeing if maybe, you know, one of those nurseries just wanted to sponsor the food for us so I didn't have to spend so much money right off the bat. Like, hey, let's do a big demonstration thing. Maybe you'll send me some trees or something. Or maybe they'd give me a discount because I'd buy a bunch, but I never really get around to. I don't know. I should just call them and do it, but it just feels weird. Hey, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this big demonstration food forest. You want to sponsor it? That would be kind of cool, but have not done it. No, figs do not like wet ground. They like good drainage, and they kind of like rocky areas. They like areas around buildings and large rocks. Remember, figs are basically Mediterranean climate, so lower rainfall, rocky soil. I do not like cold weather. Foo Bear says if T to the G got put in jail, we would plant daikon radishes in the wall and break him out. I love it. I don't know if I would want to wait that long, but it would be funny. We're working on it. We're going to get you out. So, all right, let's call it. Thank you all. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you very much, Jeremy and Joe, Karen, Bernadette, Liberty Not License, and Hobby for the all the nice super chats this evening, the tips. I hope that it's inspiring, that you're getting inspired for your 2021 gardens. I really love the mixes of perennials and annuals. They make for a very beautiful system, a very resilient system. It's kind of a combination of the best of annual gardening with food forest gardening, and you'll see how I build it over time this year, Lord willing, and everything works out. We will. I'll be doing this again as soon as I can. I've been a little busy lately, and just I think about it and go, gosh, I should have done one. It's like already 9 o'clock, which means it's 10 o'clock Eastern or whatever. So I also want to thank all of my members who support this channel. Thank you to all the members. Everybody with their name in green is a member. That's ongoing members. That's $5 a month, and you get the machete emoji. And occasionally I post stuff that's members only and ask the members, hey, Scrubland Farms, did you catch that I recommended you? You just got it. Are there parties? Just what? Hey, Scrubland, I need you to show up with like enough stuff for me to plant a huge set of strip food forests. The whole thing I've been talking about tonight. You just bring a trailer of stuff over for me. That would be awesome. I will reimburse you. You can come and plant it in the spring. Anyhow, God bless you all. Have a great night. Don't fear. Fear is the mind killer. And I highly recommend, if you are a believer, if you are a Christian, to read Psalm 37. When we end this thing, just go read Psalm 37. And it will make you feel much better about 2021. Just pay attention to it, think on it, meditate on it, read it every day. It's like a daily read psalm, especially in difficult times. Psalm 37, it's in the Old Testament. So have a great night, everybody. God bless. And until next time, may your thumbs always be green.